Okay, I get it. You came to meet the wonder kid who just sold his company and all this stuff, and you get me. So you just have to deal with it. And we have Jyoti online. Hey, Jyoti. We can't hear him. You can be in mute, just make gestures. And if you have a problem, I'll give you Jyoti's answers also, because I know what he's going to say. So anyway, I'll just give you a little bit of a background of not just his background, but what we are going to do here. I know this is about cloud computing, and you're all geeks, and you want to get into the deepest roots of how technology works and all that stuff. But then you got me. I'm a math major, worked at Intel with as much distance to technology as possible. My question at Intel was, so what? Always. You know, when somebody got very excited about a technology, I would say, so what? So I'm the so what person. So what you're going to get today is, I thought it'll be very interesting to hear Jyoti's journey. You know, how he got started, what he's done, and what are some of the pivots he needed to make to get the company to where it is, and what are some of the decisions that went into it, and what he's doing now. So what we'll do is, we'll have a chat about his journey, and when you have any specific questions, there'll be later on an opportunity for you to ask the questions you can. My interest is always the person behind. You know, you can see the numbers in the paper. If you read about the company, you'll know what the product is and stuff. But what can we find out about Jyoti that you don't read about, or what is he thinking? So that's what the conversation is going to be, just to set the stage. And when you give me a rating at the end, don't say terrible on technical quality or anything, because I'm not even attempting to go there. So, so that's the plan for today. So, Jyoti, can you say something? Can we hear you now? No. Wait, he's saying, hi, nice to be here, but we can't hear him. So I can lip read also. So, yeah, let's all learn sign language. Isn't technology fantastic? So, but we can see him, and every time I'll ask a question, he'll answer, and I'll interpret the answer for you. So it's okay, you know, we'll just still have a great time. It may take a little longer than 20 minutes we planned. Okay, Jyoti, now say something. No. Just keep singing a song. When we hear you, we know that your voice is heard. So anyway, I love telling stories, so let me tell you a story. So this will lead into our conversation this morning. So this is the story of couple who move into a neighborhood. I'll stand up because I don't like sitting. The couple move into a neighborhood. Also, when you're short and I sit, I know people at the back can't see me. So anyway, a couple move into the neighborhood. And every day they see the neighbor drying dirty laundry. Every day they get up, they look through the window, and the woman is drying clothes, dirty laundry. And this wife says to husband, what's wrong with her? What's the point of washing when your clothes are not even clean? He's like, whatever. So one day she wakes up, clothes are clean. And she says, my goodness, she runs, jumps out of bed, goes, finds her husband, who's somewhere in the kitchen, like a good husband, and asks him, what happened? Look at this, his clothes are clean. The clothes are clean today. Then the husband says, I know the clothes are clean. She says, how do you know? She says, today I woke up and washed our windows. So, when we listen to these journeys or whatever, the thing that always amazes me is that we look at the world through our window, our perspective, and we say, Arey, isko kaisa hua ye? Main bhi aisa karta tha. I also do like this. Why didn't it happen to me? That one is good, but this one is better. So we look at everything through our lenses. But I think it's most important to first clean our glasses and have absolutely no judgment and listen to how a certain journeys have taken place so that we'll find the right lessons in it and something that's applicable to each of us.
Hello.
Because everybody's journey is different, just like all our DNA is different. Everybody's journey is different. So that's why I thought it would be very interesting to hear the journey of
Jyoti, can you hear
someone
me? 1 second.
Who is so far removed from all of us, in some other place. And actually, when Ankur asked him to come speak here, he was going to talk about cloud technology and what he's doing. And in between, the news happened of him selling the company. So one thing, good about Ankur's VC company, we already know that they know how to detect good people. And so he found him, and then this whole news has happened. So then we talked to him, and we said it'll be very interesting to talk about how it has, the whole journey that has happened, what are some of the decisions, and how to make it successful. Yes, yeah. So the other thing is, we will talk about this when I'm talking to Jyoti, is that, when you start, when you're a young person, you start something, it's very difficult for people to take you seriously. Yeah, I've heard 50 such pitches. The starting is very difficult. Okay. So there's I'm from the Bay Area. I lived there for 20 plus years, and one of my very close, Rajiv Motwani and Asha Jadeja are very close friends of mine. Yeah. And as probably most of you know, Rajiv passed away a long time ago. And one of the things about Rajiv that's fantastic is that he would always be positive when somebody comes and says something. Yes.
Can you hear you? Hi.
Very good. So I'm just dancing till your voice came on. So I'll just finish quickly this story. So I was just going to say that Rajiv is someone who, when someone comes with a crazy idea, he's the first one to say yes and, as opposed to no but. And I think we had certain connection because Rajiv is one of the people who first supported Jyoti, etc. So we'll now get into the conversation. So Jyoti, you want to say something so we can hear you?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Fantastic.
Yes. All right. Technology works.
Yes. Yeah. Now you can, invest in Minjar. So we know technology works. So anyway, so I already gave the preamble, Jyoti, for our conversation to say we'll actually talk about your journey, how you started, etc. And so first I thought, I was telling them, when you start something, it's never easy, right? I mean, whatever is the result today is a result of, since 2007, 8, starting this journey. So we know about your background, you worked at other places, and when you had an idea to start something on your own, you started going. And so tell us a little bit about how many people did you talk to, and you have a very interesting story of how you finally got somebody to invest in you by doing something most unintuitive. So tell us a little bit about how you started.
Sure. When I started AppDynamics, I was an engineer building software applications. And, I was always struggling with the software applications. Things go wrong. Sometimes things don't work, things slow down, things fail. And I just wanted to fix that. So I wanted to build a product, build a business around that to solve the problem, right? So what you do in Silicon Valley is if you have an idea, you have to raise capital first because you can't build a startup without it. So I started pitching to VCs. I pitched to about 20 VCs when I got the first one to say yes to me. And the interesting story there is like the first one I said yes, first one who said yes to me and gave me an offer, a term sheet, was the one I said no to. Because one day I was just tired and this VC canceled meetings on me twice. And I was just, I sent him an email and said, let's just cancel this. I don't have time to do back and forth. And he just came out, to meet me that night and gave me an offer to invest in the company. It's kind of interesting is that, when you chase the investors very hard, sometimes it doesn't happen. When you stop chasing them, then it may happen. So that's kind of a interesting way I got started.
Yes, this is just like dating, nothing different. As long as you're chasing after the girl, she never looks at you. The moment you don't call, she's like, what happened to the guy? I'm telling from self-experience. And, but then of course, like me, when you get to a point where you're like, wow, you have the guts to chase me. Like, yeah, okay, yes, all right. So now the second thing is, Jyoti, yes, you start the company and you have all these people. Now you have the capital and you have an idea. This is what we are going to solve. This is what the problem is. I figured it all out. And you go out there and you realize your assumptions were perhaps wrong. In most cases, they are wrong. So you had a couple of pivots. So tell us a little bit about the first pivot you had to do. You were talking, you were obviously in the cloud business, in the AppDynamics business, and obviously everything is supposed to be in the public domain way, way earlier than it's supposed to be. So tell us a little bit about your assumptions about it and what's the first pivot you had to do.
Yeah, sure. When I started AppDynamics, my first assumption was that everything will move into a public cloud very soon. And I was trying to solve the problem for very large enterprises. And I soon realized, after 6-8 months of trying it and talking to a lot of customers, that's just not right. This was 2008. That public cloud is going to happen, and it's going to happen. It makes a lot of sense that everything will be in public cloud at some point. But instead of happening in 2 years, 3 years, it may take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years for a lot of enterprises to move there. So I had to pivot the company and build a product that will solve the similar kind of problems, not just in the public cloud, but also in the private data centers and the private clouds. So that was my first pivot. The second pivot I had to do was originally I was designing the product to do many more things than what we ended up doing. So I had to really cut down the functionality of the product. My initial thesis was that everyone should be doing everything through our product. They should be building their apps through our product, and they should be deploying through our product, and they should be monitoring through our product. And we soon realized it's just too much. The customers are not ready for that, or it's not the right way to go to market doing that. So I had to cut down the scope of what we are doing by almost 1/3, and focus on that 1/3 really, really deeply and really well, and solve the problems there instead of trying to do too much. So, but as you said, everything that you start with, it's you have some assumptions that are wrong, and you have to adapt and adjust. And a lot of the startup journey is about how quickly you can adapt and change when you run into something that's not what you thought it would be.
And you also talked earlier about something you learned about the market condition, from a privacy, et cetera. You had a SaaS model. So tell us a little bit about what did you observe about the market that made you change from that?
Sure. So one of the things is about any kind of B2B software is how do you deliver the software? Do you deliver it on-premise or do you deliver it SaaS? Initially, when I was starting, my thesis was that we should be delivering just SaaS because that's where the future is. That's how people want to consume technologies. But for a lot of large enterprises, especially in financial services and insurance and telco, the data privacy and the concerns around security, people still wanted our technology to be on premises. So that's another adjustment we had to make to deliver our software where the customers are. The primary learning for me was you have to have some philosophy and some point of view about how you're going to build and deliver a solution, but you have to adapt to what the customers would really so that they can use it and solve the problems for their company, their business.
So my next question is going to be, here you are an IIT graduate, you worked as an engineer, you're like the quintessential Silicon Valley nerd, right? When you started this company. And look at you now, you're very articulate, very together. I'm sure you negotiated the heck out of the deal and got the best thing possible. So you had to learn a lot of skill sets along the way, kind of on the job. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the skill sets and who did you learn from? How did you learn from in this journey? What were some of the specific skills you had to learn that really helped you?
Sure. As you said, I'm an engineer. I'm a nerd. That's how I got started, right? When you building a business around the technology that you're building, you have to learn the aspects of business very quickly. And the key aspects of business really come down to three things. One is selling. That you got to learn how to sell, and you have to get comfortable with selling. It's many times growing up in India, we look down on salesmen and people who sell, right? But that's a very important part of the skill in any business. If you can't sell, you don't have revenue, you won't survive. That's the first thing. The second thing is ability to recruit and lead people, because you cannot build a business and you cannot build anything unless you can recruit and attract and and lead a lot of people, right? So it's at AppDynamics right now we are like about 1,500 people, for example. Right? So, but that's a second skill you have to learn. And as an engineer, sometimes it could be hard. You have to put effort into it. The third skill is really about managing, finance, modeling finances, managing cash, managing money, managing finances, because you have to be good at that to survive as a business, to grow your business. So I think that it's really you learn as you go. There is no. I made a lot of mistakes and I had a lot of failures and I had a lot of challenges, a lot of problems. But you keep learning, you learn from your mistakes, you learn from your failures, and you finally figure out the path ahead.
Of course, managing finance, you're blessed with a last name that allows you to do that very well. But I am very curious, really, and let's talk a little bit about selling, a little bit about learning symptoms from people, so to know how to do your pitch in a way that they're going to listen, etc. What were some of the things you had to give up to be able to learn that? I mean, to be able to sell to somebody is not an easy thing. And I know you said you've hired people who could do that as well, but you yourself had to learn how to do that. So did you have to give up, for example, being right all the time? What is it you had to give up to really be able to sell someone?
I think to be able to sell to someone, the most important thing you have to do is to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Like, if you can imagine, like, why would the other person buy something from you? Like, what's the value you're providing? What's the business justification for them? And you have to take yourself out from the equation, and you have to think completely from the other person's perspective. So that's the first skill to learn. The second thing about ability to sell someone is you have to be okay with rejection, right? As an engineer who's building a product, building a technology, you have so much passion and attachment to the product you're building, but that product may not be the right product for everyone, or it may not be the right timing for someone, right? So you have to be okay with that, and not take any kind of a rejection personally. If you try to learn those two things, you can learn how to sell pretty well.
So now let me ask you about when you scale up, when you're successful, you come to a point where you have to make a decision of, do I go IPO or do I sell? Everybody has to come to this decision. Obviously, we know there's some thinking you had to do. So what was behind your decision to say, okay, this is the route I want to go?
Well, I think to be honest, we didn't make a decision of either one of those. The decision for us was to keep building the business. Like, for us, is like, as long as we keep growing the revenue, as long as we keep growing the number of customers, as long as our customers are happy, excited, and we're building a great business, everything else will happen. So I never set a goal that our goal is to go IPO, or our goal is to sell the company, or our goal is to sell the company. My goal was to keep growing the business and build a bigger and bigger and bigger business. And things will happen, right? So we wanted to be an independent company. We were going public. Just 2 days before our IPO, Cisco came in and make an offer that was very hard to refuse. We actually did refuse the first offer. They made a second offer, which we refused, and then they made a third offer, which was impossible to refuse.
See, I told you were a good negotiator. So, one of the other things from a social point of view is that, when you're a student, there is a certain group you have around you. When you start a company, your group changes, and then you are successful. And then when you sell, and there is actually in the news everywhere that, oh, okay, this is what it sold for, and people are doing their mental calculations of how much this guy must have made, and blah, blah. And you still look like a lovable nerd, so how do you stay grounded? Who are the people who keep you grounded and say, okay, boss, don't think you're too much of a hot shit, just stay grounded? Like, how do you stay grounded? I mean, I'm sure you're being invited to, some Trump palace, or all these kinds of invitations start coming in. So how do you say, I'm going to stay grounded?
I think the way to stay grounded is really to remember, like, I grew up in a small town in Rajasthan. I grew up in a very normal middle class family. I worked hard to get to build a business, and I know, like, a lot of what I have achieved is not just there's a lot of, like, element of luck as well. The right luck, right timing, right? So it's you keep that in mind, like, people who are equally smart and equally hardworking and have done exactly the same things may not get the success there. So you keep things in perspective, and that keeps you keeps you grounded. I also have my wife who keeps me very grounded. Like, if something gets into my head too much, she will smack me down.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to ask you about her because. And so my final question to you is that you've now started doing other things in terms of giving back to the community. So what's keeping you excited now? I mean, apart from still being involved in your company and from an emotional point of view, you physically don't need to go there every day, etc. So what's keeping you busy these days?
Sure. For me, I like to solve hard problems. I like to solve, the way I started AppDynamics because I was, I wasn't happy with the state of monitoring of complex distributed IT systems. And I wanted to solve that and build a business around solving that. So there are other problems that I'm starting to get excited about. So, I'm working on this sort of a lab where we kind of assemble teams of engineers and entrepreneurs and go after some exciting, interesting problem areas that we want to solve. So that's very exciting. I also work with other entrepreneurs and founders to help them build their businesses, to help them grow as a mentor, investor sometimes. Definitely very excited about what's happening in the Indian startup ecosystem. Very fertile, very thriving, and I do think the Indian startup ecosystem going through its next wave of evolution, where we'll see not just the consumer or the e-commerce kind of companies, but also very B2B and SaaS kind of companies. So I'm starting to get involved in helping some of them out, especially how they grow internationally, how they build a go-to-market function to sell all across the world. So a lot of exciting things to do to keep me busy.
Okay, so when are you getting to drinking age finally? When will you be 21?
Another 5 years.
Okay, I want to open it up for questions from the audience before I wrap up with Jyoti. Any questions? There's a question here, red shirt here. Oh, lots of people have.
That was good to know about you, Jyoti.
Can you hear him, Jyoti?
Not very clearly. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, okay.
Not it. Okay, it was nice to know about you, Jyoti. This is Krishnan here. The question I have is, you mentioned that in the initial days, you started on a SaaS initiative, and then you had to switch over to some of the enterprise clients to on-premises kind of a model, right? So do you still think that is the scenario as of today, or the enterprises are changing their thoughts on this area?
Did you hear it?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did hear it.
Okay.
So good question. I do think it has changed a bit. So what happened was I started selling AppDynamics product in the market in 2009. And most of the larger enterprises were looking for an on-premise option to run in their data centers. And so we said, okay, let's build our product that will do both and let the market decide what they want. So we were seeing about 80% people in large enterprise choosing the on-premise option and 20% choosing our SaaS option. But today that has shifted to about 40% people using on-premise option and 60% people choosing SaaS. So definitely the shift has happened from 80% on-premise to 40% on-premise right now. But it's still not zero. But I would say, if you fast forward five years, it will, almost all large enterprises will get very comfortable using a SaaS product for infrastructure products like monitoring and security and things like that.
And also some of the change might happen by sectors, right? I mean, a consumer sector may move faster, but a banking sector may move slower. So depending on how much they care about their security, the comfort level is less and less, right? So it'll take some time.
Definitely. I think the thing that happened is cloud is not necessarily any less secure than doing it yourself in a data center. If you look at how secure Amazon cloud is, or the Google cloud is, or Microsoft Azure is, many people argue that it's even more secure than you doing it yourself for a lot of things. So, and a lot of enterprises, especially even in the banks and financial services, are starting to realize that The challenge sometimes is the regulation, that the regulation don't allow it, and there are laws, and there is sometimes inertia. But it's not a security issue anymore. It's more of a the right kind of regulations and privacy laws. That's more of an issue at this point.
And also, it's more an emotional and social than even technical. Even the technological solution is right. Sometimes, people may emotionally feel somehow it's more secure if I put it under my bed as opposed to putting it in the locker, So that's
Yes.
more an issue than anything else, I think. Yeah.
Definitely.
Sorry,
Yeah.
next question.
Hi, Jyoti. I have a question for you.
Where is the voice of God coming from? Okay, yeah. Okay. Why don't you stand up, then he can see you, otherwise.
Okay.
Okay.
So when you started AppDynamics, you already had an APM tool in the market called Wiley, and which was doing good, I think. So what made you decide that, okay, I'm going to make a better product which will give tough time to Wiley?
So there were already existing products, and you don't build products ever in vacuum. You always do better. You always try to do significantly better than some existing technology or some existing solution. So the trend that I saw was a big trend, that people were moving to more and more of these heavily service-oriented architectures for whatever application they were building. People were moving to more and more agile development, so things changing very fast. People making changes in their code and their software systems really, really fast. And the older technologies like from CA and IBM and HP, they were really not designed for those kind of architectures, right? So many times you have to look at it like if there is a big shift of some kind, like a shift that happens once every 10 years, every 15 years. And in that case, the shift was very clear. The shift to heavily service-oriented architectures, agile development, and cloud computing. So combination of that, it was clear that we would need the next generation platform and next generation monitoring solution. So that's what I wanted to build.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah. How much time do we have?
Hi, Jyoti. So I know that for an entrepreneur, I think the books plays a very important role. So what books do you recommend to read as an entrepreneur?
What book do you recommend to read? Jyoti is writing a book right now. I'm actually co-authoring with him, and when we publish it, we'll send you the book. So Jyoti, were there any books, any authors, anybody who inspired you?
I only read like fiction books, like more classic fiction kind of books, because I learn more from them.
Which ones are your favorite?
Read like something like War and Peace. You'll probably learn more reading that about the society and people and things like that than reading business books. So I really can't recommend any business books. I don't read them.
Okay, when I come to the Bay Area, we're going to sit down and have an interview so I can start writing a book, okay? So, any other question? At the back there, can you get a mic? You said 10 more minutes, right? So we have like 4 to 5 more questions. If whoever wants to ask, put your hand up so we'll have the mic to you instead of...
Yeah. Hi, Jyoti. My name is Dushyant. We are hearing about this serverless technology. So I just wanted to know what's the view of your business on those kind of technologies.
I'm sorry, what kind of technologies can you...
Serverless technology. So a lot of companies are now offering serverless technologies, and a lot of people are developing applications which are native to serverless. So what is the view of your business in that particular market segment?
Did you ask what serverless?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think definitely it's a exciting technology. I do think it's really a continuation of two trends that's been happening forever. Like the two trends are, one is that you take your software code and you break into smaller and smaller pieces, because smaller pieces are more manageable, more you can have teams working in parallel. You can have you don't have to. They can all be assembled in a much easier way. Right? So people moved from very monolithic applications to very service-oriented architectures, and then to microservice architectures, and now to serverless or functions, where you're taking a large piece of code, you first broken into services. Now people broke into microservices, and now people breaking into functions. So the smaller units are there, you get more agility, more nimbleness. So that's the That's the broader trend that's been going on for a long time, and it's a continuation of that trend. It does come with some challenges. It does come with challenges around operational challenges. Operational challenges on how do you monitor, how do you troubleshoot, how do you deploy them properly, how do you secure them, because there are so many moving parts. So when there are like so more moving parts, there is more operational challenge. But I do think like at some point the operational challenges will be figured out. There'll be tools and products in the market that will help with operational challenges. AppDynamics would be one of those products where will help you monitor the serverless kind of applications. There will be more products like that who will help you with security, with deployment, with all sort of things. And over time, we will see more and more serverless applications for sure. And it's definitely pretty exciting from a developer perspective, the agility that it gives you.
Any other questions? Okay, there's a hand up here, and there's a hand way back there. Oh, there's somebody who has a mic already. Okay.
Hey, Jyoti, this is Rohit here. I work with Hortonworks. Congratulations on your massive buyout. A couple of questions. How real is machine learning when it comes to application monitoring from AppDynamics perspective? And what's the future of, let's say, machine learning in that? And the second is, in what way do you think monitoring and, let's say, root cause analysis kind of tools will come up in the next 4 to 5 years?
Sure. You mentioned machine learning. Machine learning is many times could be a buzzword that everyone is using the word machine learning on everything. But really, the core of machine learning is about how do you apply it to solve problems. And in the world of monitoring and root cause analytics, that's definitely there are definitely problems you can solve with good learning algorithms and the ability to collect massive amounts of data. Right. So the first one of the things that everyone wants in the monitoring and troubleshooting is don't tell me that something is a problem. Tell me why it's a problem. Right. So why exactly the problem is, and how so that it cuts down your mean time to resolution. So companies like AppDynamics have done a pretty good job in instrumenting the apps in production and extracting a lot of data out of those. So now the next phase of monitoring and troubleshooting innovation you would see coming out in the market is that how do you apply machine learning and deep learning to solve some problems around making troubleshooting even easier, or making predictions around based on past performance problems and past operational problems that, around future problems that may or may not happen, right? So you will also see things like when you're doing like say continuous delivery of new code in production, that new code would it cause problems? Can you predict it based on how the code has behaved in the past, things like that. So definitely a lot of interesting use cases to be solved. And as applications get more dynamic, more distributed, more larger scale, handling more and more data, the application monitoring and troubleshooting has to evolve to keep up with that for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jyoti, hi, it's Alok here from your story. So when you look back, Jyoti, in your journey of AppDynamics till date, what are some of the biggest mistakes you think you have committed, and what have you learned from them?
Sure.
What do you mean? He makes no mistakes.
You know what? That's what sometimes people think. Like when something the end result is good, people think that everything was going very perfectly and smoothly, but that's never the case. There's a lot of mistakes. The biggest thing that I have learned is that you have to accept your mistakes fast and correct them. Like you don't want to let them linger on for too long, because if you do, that's when they become big mistakes, right? So, and many times mistakes are about you hired a wrong person, and the person is not the right fit for the role, right? So you can continue with that for a very long time and let the business suffer, let the other your other employees suffer as a result of that, or you can correct that, realize that, and correct that. Sometimes the mistakes you make are there's a change in the market and you have not reacted to it fast enough, right? So you have to accept that and do that, or sometimes the mistakes are around that you try to go too fast or try to do too many things at the same time, and you have to cut down because you just can't keep up and handle too many things. So there are plenty of mistakes that I did at AppDynamics, and I learned from many of them. But the main thing was to me was like I got to correct the mistakes fast. My rule of thumb was that if I get 7 out of 10 decisions right, I'm doing a very good job. If I try to get 10 out of 10 decisions right, I would slow down so much and I would never do a good job doing it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question, 2 questions. What is your
Wait a minute.
views?
When is this one question becoming 2 questions?
Yeah, it's a 2 part of the questions. Okay, what is your views on machine learning or AI in cloud in going global, right? And how do we bring in unlearning, right? In artificial intelligence and in cognitive. What is your views on that?
I could only hear the first part of the question. Can someone repeat the second part of the question?
The second part of question is, in the world of AI and bots and robots is coming, how do I bring in unlearning? And some of the business processes, we are doing today, the past data may not be the right one in the new business scenario. So how do I bring in the unlearning portion of in the machine learning area? That's what my question.
Sure. Very, very good question. I think it's how do you unlearn really comes down to the concept of how good your learning algorithms or your learning models, how does the data fit into it? But for any if you look at any kind of successful learning algorithms out there, they need massive amounts of data to do a good job at it, right? So if you have your data set is so high that you can do a good job. Now the AI models are pretty good, and they're all available, accessible. You can call an API into Google, an API into Amazon, and get access to the model. But you have to make sure that you have the right kind of data, right? The second thing then is once you have the data and you build the model, you have to perfect the model, you have to tune the model. And that's where the concept of unlearning really come in. You got to keep tuning the model until you get to the right kind of accuracy level, right? So the accuracy level you want to get to 98%, 99% out of your AI model. And that's what is accurate or not many times has to be determined by the end user, right? So the end user has to say I am seeing this output from the algorithm, but this is not accurate. And you based on that, you keep training the model more and more. So eventually, if you have the right kind of data and you keep training the model, you will get there. But there is so much in that world of AI that still has to happen. It's really early, right? So that's so my advice to any business or any technology team trying to use AI to solve some problems is really all about focus on the problem and how accurate you want to get the solution to the problem, and not the particular model or the particular approach you came up with, because your models will change and tune as to get the right outcomes.
I think we should do that last question. Last question.
Hello.
Over there,
So,
yeah.
I've been holding the mic. This is Anand here, and I've been holding the mic for the last 5 minutes trying to ask a question. And
Congratulations, you've succeeded.
Thank you. And I thank you for giving me the last question. Unfortunately, the gentleman just before me asked the question I wanted to ask.
Okay, then we are done with all the questions.
Yes, that's true. Actually, he asked about artificial intelligence and what role it's going to play in running operations in future. And he asked a very interesting question about unlearning. And Jyoti very beautifully said, learning is a form, unlearning is actually a part of learning. So, Botmetric is actually an intelligent platform that helps you resolve problems intelligently on the public cloud. And all I would do as part of this question is thank you for being being here and answering all these wonderful questions from our guests. Thank you very much.
So, Jyoti, you want to say your parting words? Then I'll say my parting words, because, once you say something, I'm toast. So, but I have to make sure they listen to me also. So.
No, thanks for inviting me to speak here. It's I'm glad I was able to make it work. I couldn't attend in person, but this was a good forum, and I'm excited that these kind of events and these kind of summits are starting to happen. For the Indian IT community, these are always good forums for people to come together, learn, and see, what's where the world is going. So thank you, everyone.
I just want to say that I think my wrap up is very linked to the last thing Jyoti answered about is, at Inc., one of the things we keep thinking about is this whole unlearning. I think the machines will do their part, and we will keep making them smarter. Someday singularity is going to be here and robots will take over. But the one thing nobody can take over is our humanity, I think, what we are. And as long as we can be good enough to unlearn and be open, again, in the story that I said in the beginning of have clear glasses and look at the world, I think a lot is opening up. I mean, what's exciting to me about India, which is what Jyoti alluded to in the end in his talk, is that we've been through a service revolution. We've been through a B2C revolution. And this is what Jyoti and I were talking about earlier, is that I think now what's exciting is, can we get behind the scenes and actually work on the technology? What are some new technologies that are coming that we can truly leapfrog some of the legacy technologies, whether it is solar and wind in energy, or whether it is blockchain in finance, or whether it is getting into some of the cloud technologies and working behind the scenes for B2B, whatever it is. Can the Indian entrepreneur, can the Indian ecosystem leapfrog some of the legacy systems and become an example for the world of some of the changes that they can come? I mean, our own disadvantages. Today, we have 80% of the people that don't have banks anywhere close to them, et cetera. But guess what? If we can adopt something like blockchain and with the cashless economy, we can be the first country that completely goes cashless. So there is a lot of opportunities, and to do that, to unlearn, we need to keep meeting like this. We need to keep having conversations. We need to keep listening to people who are not like us. I totally agree with you, Jyoti. You learn more from War and Peace than you do from a business book. So when I did my MBA, my minor was in theater arts. I learned more from my acting classes than I did from my statistical analysis, which I never use. So the point is, I am really excited about it. It's a great opportunity to talk to someone like Jyoti. I want to thank my friend Ankur, who made the conversation happen for me. And I think I want to leave you with what Jyoti is doing now and what I talked to you earlier about what Rajiv used to do. I think the moment we get any amount of success, doesn't matter however big, small it is, the best thing to do is to give back, to like you're doing with the startup lab, and Rajiv used to always do with office hours. And the thing that keeps us going at Inc. is that when there's a great person who has a great story but doesn't know how to tell the story, how do you get them to tell the story and get them on a global stage? Because I think a lot of the stories of innovation from here belong on a global stage. So thank you so much for having us, and congratulations, Jyoti, and congratulations to all of you for giving us the most valuable thing you own, which is your time. Thank you.